Good evening, everybody. We're going to get settled in. I want to thank all of you for coming tonight to the Governor's Debate, the People's Forum Governor's Debate. I want to let you know that there are two of the candidates here tonight, Delane Easton and Antonio Villaraigosa. Gavin Newsom could not come because of scheduling conflicts, and John Chung was not able to come for a last-minute family emergency. Those are the candidates for the evening. The questions are, we'll deal with the questions later, but I just wanted to thank everybody, and I wanted to thank the people who are sponsoring this event tonight. First of all, AFT 2121. I'm the president of AFT 2121. We represent the faculty here at City College of San Francisco, and we're so proud to be having you here for this event tonight. Also, Kim Alvarenga from the California Domestic Workers Coalition. And David Campos from the San Francisco Democratic Party. And I also want to say that they have been incredible champions for City College over the last years of its crisis. We want to give them a special thanks to them.
Buenas noches, ¿cómo están? How's everybody doing? Just want to say it's an honor for us to co-sponsor this forum tonight with AFT and the Democratic Party. We're a statewide coalition of domestic worker organizations and employers that work to empower and build political power and advance the rights of domestic workers. And we organize this event tonight to really make sure that the people that are impacted by the issues that are so important and relevant in our city today are at the center of this conversation. So it means so much to us that you are joining us today and that we can have that conversation, that dialogue with the next potential governor in the state of California. Thank you so much for joining us today. And it is my honor to introduce a longtime friend and former supervisor of District 9, La Visión, and the chair of the Democratic Party, David Campos.
Thank you. How's City College? Come on, City College is a house of what? It's been a long struggle to get to the point where this institution is, and so it's very great for us, and we're very proud as a Democratic Party to have this debate here at this institution to underscore the importance of the institution. Before I introduce our amazing moderator, I want to acknowledge some of the members of your Democratic County Central Committee who are here. Petra de Jesus, Sophie Maxwell, Francis Shea, Kelly Brock. I also want to acknowledge the Executive Director of the Democratic Party, Adam Miz. Natalie Dees, working with the party as well. And then, are we live streaming? And we are live streaming this debate. So besides the people who are here, we have a lot of people that are watching at home. And then I want to acknowledge our amazing volunteers. Bolan and Sheena were here. Can you wave? Thank you very much. So I am honored to now introduce our moderator for this evening. She is someone who has been a presence on media, Spanish language media, for many years. I think that those of us at the national level know of Jorge Ramos, and I think at the local level, the Bay Area, there's no more important figure in terms of what Spanish-speaking community than Maria Leticia Gomez. I think I would say Jorge Ramos is the Leticia Gomez of national Spanish language news. Maria Leticia Gomez was born in Rosario, Argentina. She grew up in Mexico City and Washington, D.C. She earned a double degree in French literature and sociology from the University of Maryland, a master's degree in sociology from the George Washington University. For her master's thesis, she lived among the Zapatistas in the rainforest in southeastern Chiapas, Mexico, where she discovered her passion for journalism. After reporting for TV Azteca and Univision News in Mexico City, in 1995, Ms. Gomez became the Washington, D.C. correspondent for Canal de Noticias NBC. She wrote articles for Spain's newspaper El País and worked as an anchor reporter for Univision in New York City. In May 2000, she joined the Univision team here in San Francisco, the Bay Area, as a primetime anchor. Her journalistic work has earned her 18 Emmy Awards, and she was also honored with 6 Mark Twain Awards from the Associated Press. She left Univision just recently, and I'm proud to say that I get to work with her in the county of Santa Clara, where she is the person in charge as Director of Communications and Public Affairs for that county. So please welcome, join me in welcoming, giving a big round of applause to Maria Leticia Gomez.
We have 2 of the gubernatorial candidates in-house tonight, which will give us a bit more time to pick their brains and find out about their goals and objectives if they are elected. I would like to ask you all to participate in the questions. You can write down a question and hand it to a staff member here in the audience, back there. She's raising her hand, different people. And you can give the question to them, they're going to come pick it up from you. And the question that is the most relevant or the most frequent, you might get a chance to ask directly to the candidates this evening. So if you have a question in mind, go ahead, write it down, share it, and next thing you know, you may be up on this microphone to ask it yourself. So let's introduce. Do you want to do the point? Oh. She wants to, of course, yes. We have simultaneous translation in Spanish tonight, and she wants to make a comment.
No, she just wants to speak.
Yeah, just for those to know that we have simultaneous interpretation, so for those that are speaking, candidates to slow down and make sure we have enough time.
That would be including me, right? Okay, so I will now then proceed to read the bios of tonight's candidates, the 2 that are joining us for this event. And we'll start with Antonio Villaraigosa, who is our respected voice in American politics and a prominent policymaker with a keen understanding of America's mainstream and emerging communities. Known for his exceptional skills at building bipartisan coalitions, he draws support from the broad center of both the Democratic and Republican base. In 2013, Mr. Villaraigosa finished his 2 terms as the 41st mayor of the city of Los Angeles after 8 years of major strides in transportation, crime reduction, infrastructure, energy, and resource sustainability, also right-sizing government, business development, and education reform. Prior to his election as mayor, Mr. Villaraigosa served as a member of the Los Angeles City Council from 2003 to 2005. From 1994 to 2000, Mr. Villaraigosa served in the California State Assembly as Democratic Whip, Majority Leader, and Speaker of the Assembly. He was a member of President Obama's Transition Economic Advisory Board and was the 2012 chairman of the Democratic National Convention. Mr. Villaraigosa also has served in academia as a fellow at Harvard University and as a professor in public policy at the University of Southern California. He also is a senior fellow at the
in Union City, California. Good morning, all. And I want to say to all of you, we have a crisis in California. We need somebody who's absolutely committed to addressing that crisis. When my dad got out of the Navy, he and my mother were blue-collar people, no college educations, and the first in my family to go to college. They were able to buy a house in San Carlos, California for $16,500. But 20 years later, in the 70s, I was able to buy a house for under $40,000.
redevelopment in 2010. I led that effort. I want to bring back redevelopment to cities and counties. They took $1.5 billion away from cities just as the mortgage meltdown was getting worse. 2, we got to put a housing trust fund together. I ran on a housing trust fund in 2001. I lost that race. In 2005, when I became mayor, they had a housing trust fund, but they didn't have any money in it. I put $100 million in the housing trust fund. It leveraged $1.5 billion in tax credits. We built 20,000 units of housing in the middle of a recession when we were facing a bankruptcy. So the state needs to put a housing trust fund together. That will leverage tax credits, that will match the redevelopment that they now have in cities. That says, as you mentioned very well, we got to put a plan for affordable housing, a plan for workforce housing, a plan for market rate housing, and a plan for homeless housing. 3, we've got to address density. Look, folks, if you notice, and some of you from time to time go to LA, we built 3 light rail lines and 1 busway while I was mayor. More than any city in the United States of America. But I tell people, it wasn't just about moving people, it was about reimagining the city, about having a better job housing balance. The fact of the matter is, we got to build density downtown and along transit oriented developments, as you mentioned. First city in America to have a transit oriented development plan that says, if you're right next to a transit station, you got to be able to build. 4th, we got to have permitting reform, everybody. And, a lot of people say it's just money. It's permitting too. It's broken. It takes too long to build anything in California. LA and San Francisco probably among the worst. Finally, we've got to say every community's got to participate. Now, people are talking about housing by right, forcing communities to do what too many communities haven't wanted to do. I want to incentivize them first. They got to do all that, what I just mentioned. We'll give them money from the state. We'll match it. 2, they got to, if they don't do it, they got to put money into a kitty for the rest of the region, so they will. And then finally, if they don't do that, then we're going to have to say to cities, you have a responsibility. There's a lot of young people here. I bought a house at 24 years old. I didn't have a mother, I didn't have a father. I didn't have a mother to give me the down payment. I bought a house at 24. Yours was 39. Mine was 42. Probably bought it a few years before I did. Mine was $42,000. You could buy a house back then. Our kids can't rent a house, much rent an apartment, much buy one. And we've got to say to communities that have stopped growth and stopped development and stopped housing that, you know what, we've got to invest in the next generation. So those are some of the ideas. for doctors that people can't, get a doctor. So we're going to have to look at all of that. The next governor can't just say it's okay that so many people, about 7 million, are going without health care. We could do better than that.
Some years ago, we had a doctor who testified in the legislature that he had a terrible weekend. He had been in the emergency room, was about to go home, and parents brought in their child, a 7-year-old boy. He had 107+ degree fever. He was unconscious, near death. The doctors threw him into high gear and worked all night, and they saved his life. That little boy went deaf in 1 year. It cost you as taxpayers over $25,000. And all because that little boy didn't get $4 worth of antibiotics. The fact is, an ounce of prevention really is worth a pound of cure. And we, as a state, must get together and decide that we're going to do affordable health care for all. Yes, it will be hard. But one of the stories I like is John Kennedy, when he said we should go to the moon by the end of the 60s. A bunch of people said, "Are you crazy? That's too expensive. Mr. President, that's too ambitious a schedule. Mr. President, that's too hard." And Kennedy said we go to the moon not because it is easy, but because it is hard. Ladies and gentlemen, it may be hard, but we can do it. They made fun of Roosevelt when he proposed Social Security. Guess what? It's been a godsend for this country. They gave up Lyndon Johnson at that time for Medicare. And yes, it's been a godsend for this country. And we have to decide what our values are. My values say affordable health care for all. And if that means we have to have a public option or some other solution that deprives some of the very, very wealthy corporations of some of their profit, I say good on you. Really sick people are not very profitable to serve, So they don't want to serve them. But I say the compassion that is part of being a democracy has to include health care for all. And by the way, even Massachusetts kind of figured it out under Romney, so surely to God, if we had a governor with a brass backbone, we in California could figure this out. And I pledge to you, we will have health care for all in the state of California. Because a lot of the money is actually in the system. It's just that we won't be able to give all those profits to those companies that want it. So I'm a candidate that's not taking money from Big Pharma, because I'm done with Big Pharma. Posing the people of California, raising up the EpiPen to an extraordinary level without even being able to explain why they did that. Clearly they had spent the money already, they had developed it, it wasn't costing very much, but now all of a sudden, hundreds of times increase in the cost. And so somebody who's a grown-up has got to stand in Sacramento and say, legislature, we're coming together, we're doing this on behalf of the people of California, all of the people, from the littlest ones to the eldest ones, and everybody in between. And ladies and gentlemen, we also have to learn something from the Swiss. The Swiss used to treat the opioid problems and the drug problems as if they were crime problems. Then one day they decided it was a mental health problem, and they changed the way they did it, and now there's almost no drug problem in Switzerland.
We think it's very important to have a domestic worker leader and a student or ATF union leader representing these people's forum. As a point of empowerment and visibility for those who are the most impacted by the issues we're discussing today. Also, the two persons that will ask the next two questions through local and statewide efforts are leaders that are bringing a positive change in their communities. The first question comes from Telma Estrada. She is from the California Domestic Workers Coalition and the local leader of Mujeres Unidas y Activas, MUAC. So, Telma Estrada, please come on. Today, Casey will be the first one to answer this question.
¿Quieres que venga aquí arriba mejor? ¿Quieres acá? You want to come up? Come on. You want to use this one? Either way.
Hola, muy buenas noches a todos y muchísimas gracias por estar aquí.
Hello, good evening to everyone, and thank you very much for being here today.
Los inmigrantes son una parte vital del tejido de San Francisco y de todo California. ¿Qué hará como gobernador en sus primeros 100 días para proteger a los inmigrantes de las deportaciones y también de defender la capacidad de ejercer sus derechos como trabajadoras?
In light of the attacks from the Oval Office against immigrant communities, including the threat of ICE raids in sanctuary cities and the repeal of TPS for thousands of our community members, what will you do as governor in the first 100 days to protect immigrants from deportations and uphold their ability to exercise their rights as workers?
Well, thank you for the question. It's especially important that California stand tall on behalf of its immigrant population, because that's who we are. In my life, I have never seen a more racist misogynist as president of our United States. As a former community college teacher, I learned early on the 10th Amendment to the Constitution says all powers not granted to the federal government nor denied to the states shall belong to the states and to the people. This state will stand up for its DACA residents. It will stand with its dreamers. It will stand for the future by standing up for our residents. And we will tell ICE to keep your mitts off of our Californians. The truth be known, we have an opportunity here to continue the great lift that California has been to our country. But it's about accepting all people here. The beautiful thing is that, my grandparents here in San Francisco, my great-grandparents, who came to San Francisco, a French Catholic married a French Jew, went home to France and told their parents, and they got disowned by both sides of the family. So they moved to San Francisco. Where did you go? And the other was a Protestant Irish family, Irishman, married a Catholic Irish, and they came to San Francisco. My dad came here. His father was from the Western Christian Temperance Union, non-drinking. He thought he'd rather see his kids dead than drunk. My mother's father was a bootlegger who owned a bar here in San Francisco. You know the 7 Mile House? Well, that was my grandfather's. So after he was a teamster, he owned the bar. So the truth is, this is a place where people of all shapes and sizes and all characteristics should feel comfortable, should feel invited, should feel welcome, and should feel empowered. We must empower each other to protect our neighbors and our friends against the harsh and unforgivable attitude of a man who is a disgusting representative of elected office in the history of this state. And I say to you, let us stand together. If I gave you 20 pencils one at a time, you could break all 20 pencils. But if I give you 20 pencils together, the strongest person in this room can't break them. Let us stand together, shoulder to shoulder, arm in arm, with DACA and all of our California residents. Thank you.
Mira, you're going to have to translate for me. Quiero dar las gracias por la pregunta. Porque entiendo muy bien, en estos momentos, la política de Trump, la política anti-inmigrante, es una política que está aterrorizando a una comunidad.
I want to first of all appreciate that question because the agenda currently is terrorizing our communities.
What I said was, I said I want to give you honor for that question, because what's going on right now is this administration is terrorizing our community and creating a living, now I forgot everything I said, but you know what, I'll translate. inmigrante japonés, el inmigrante mexicano y filipino, y de Europa también que construyó este estado. The reality is it was the Chinese and the Japanese and the Filipinos and the Mexicans and people from Europe who built this state. Y lo que vamos a decir, lo que puede ser en la primera 100 días, what I'm going to do in the first 100 days is say that every ICE agent that wants to come into a school, a university, a public hospital, a court office, any public building where they don't otherwise have a right to be, they're going to have to come in with a warrant for a specific individual. Lo que voy a decir a ICE como gobernador es que van a tener que venir con un orden especial si quieren entrar a una universidad, una hospital, un corte, una oficina pública del estado, del ciudad o del condado, del distrito escolar. Van a tener que venir con un orden específico y no terrorizar a la gente como los están haciendo. That's what we're going to do in the first 100 days.
10 segundos, 10 seconds.
10 seconds, and then of course we've got to educate them, stand up for the notion that they can come to our schools, our universities, that we provide them health care. We've got to treat them like the human beings they are.
Thank you. The next question comes from Tim Kelly. He is the president of the American Federation of Teachers, Local 2121, and Mr. Villaraigosa will answer first.
Thank you very much. City College of San Francisco has recently become free for all San Franciscans. And that is thanks to the voters of San Francisco and to the leadership of City College students, Supervisor Jane Kim, and AFT 2121. But elsewhere in the state and the country, education costs continue to rise, and students are being saddled with outrageous debts. How would your administration tackle costs for current students and students exiting college who are already underwater in debt?
Well, first of all, as you know, one, congratulations and thank you to all of you for supporting the free college at San Francisco City College. But as you know, if you're bored, that's not enough. I mean, most of these kids and these people need housing, they need transportation. We're going to have to figure out how we put a package of support for them. You know, I went to
County of San Francisco for standing up and doing this, taking this wonderful step. It is time the whole state stood up and took this step on every campus for every student in California. I've been done and I will just tell you that in '85, all but one UC campus was built and open, all but 3 CSUs were built and open in 1985, and all but 9 community college campuses were built and open. Do the math. We built 13 campuses since '85. In that same period of time, we built 23 prisons. Now let that sink in. We used to spend over 18% of the state of California budget on higher education and 3% on prisons. Higher ed is now dropped to under 12%. Prisons are over 9%. How much better do you feel? Not a bit. So it's time for somebody who understands budgets or statements of values and says we're done with this. If we educate them, we won't have to incarcerate them. So I'm not only for tuition-free college, I'm for building more college campuses. I'm for building them in some of the more remote parts of our state. Because I visited schools up there, and a bunch of people said to me, our kids can't go down 300 miles to school, or 250 miles, or 200 miles. It's too far. And you know what would happen if we built more colleges and universities and made them tuition-free? We'd have a second and a third Silicon Valley. Because that's why I was born here. It wasn't a confluence of rivers. We have no Tigris and no Euphrates. It was a confluence of educational opportunities that made the Silicon Valley. And we owe it to the next generation of children to do that again. And we can do it.
The next question is from the public tonight, and the first one will be answered first by Dave Eastman and then by Antonio Villaraigosa. The first question will be from Sasha Bittner. She is handling on Domestic Employers Network, and the theme that she wants to ask about is long-term care. Sasha?
Thank you for your answer to how you will respond to the tax against healthcare and Medicaid coming from the federal level.
We all know that the need for long-term home care is growing.
However, we know that the need for long-term home care is growing.
God do everything possible for me. Medicare does not cover most long-term care, and Medicaid requires you to spend down money, often into property, in order to qualify for home support.
Contrary to popular belief, Medicare does not cover most long-term care, and Medicaid requires you to spend down your money, often into poverty, in order to qualify for in-home support.
I am for some long-term care benefits within all California. How to access the care they need in the homes and in the communities as they tend to provide quality employment to thousands of home care workers.
A universal long-term care benefit in California would ensure that all Californians are able to access the in-home support they need in their homes and communities as they age, and to provide quality employment to thousands of care workers.
I recommend supporting the creation of a long-term care benefit in California, and also importantly, how we propose financing it.
in a situation where they now need some kind of long-term care. I had 2 aunts who lived into their 90s. One was able to get in-home care at home, but it was extremely expensive. The other one is in a long-term care facility, and it is even more expensive. The one has passed away, and she still had her house and a little bit of money left. The other one is getting ready to have to sell her house. She's 97 years old, going on 98, and she could live a long time still. And she's the lucky one who has a house, who's got a savings account that she's now almost completely run through. I will say to each of you, the face of poverty right now in California as a mother of children, but the face of poverty in 20 years will be the centenarian. And right now the fastest growing group in the state is centenarians. So we must all look at one another. Yes, we have good friends who have disabilities and have challenges already before they become seniors, but we are about to see an army of people become seniors. And I commit to you that I will immediately convene a task force to look at, and we have some of the finest people in California here. We got great universities, great colleges, great think tanks, and we're going to go on a mission to figure this out and to do this in California for the future. Because I can tell you that long-term care, I signed up for a policy that was never supposed to go up, and it's gone up dramatically, and I had to reduce from lifetime care to a 6-year policy. And now I'm really kind of sorry I did it, because it looked like I was trying to be conscientious, and we have to do something. Because if I can't do it, then a lot of people with smaller means than I have can't do it. This is an urgent problem in California, and it does need a thoughtful solution. And I pledge to you that I will develop such a team, and we will make it a priority. Thank you for the question.
It's good to see you again, Sasha. First of all, thank you for coming here and being willing to participate today in this debate forum, and thank you for the courage that you have to take as much
important and the most valuable asset that I have, that is my child. And tonight we have heard about the challenges of the workforce, whether it is domestic workers, student parents, and faculty in California. For workers with children, the average cost of childcare is more than an in-state tuition. I have a 2-year-old boy, and I can't wait until he's 4, so he can go to preschool, and I can go back to work, finish my higher education. But working parents need affordable childcare from the time their kids are infants until they can safely care for themselves. The jobs today are around the clock, yet our childcare system is still set up for parents who work during the day. What are your ideas to improving our childcare system so it is responsive for today's working families and student parents? That starts at birth, is affordable, offers flexibility, and pays our providers what they deserve. Candidates, I would like to hear from you. How would you address the childcare crisis facing working people?
Well, that's an excellent question, and I will say to all of you, I believe that first, California and America are not doing enough for prenatal care, for leave when you have maternity leave. You know, most of the world, Germany gives 3 years. Most of the world gives at least 9 months. We give a few months of underpaid support. We give disability pay. So I think it ought to be fully paid. We ought to go to 3 months to 6 months to 9 months of fully paid maternity leave. Second, we really do need to have a real increase in investment in child care and child development. I have a young friend in Oakland who's got a brand new baby. She's also got a $1,700 a month one-bedroom apartment with her husband, and she's got $248,000 worth of loans to go to college, where she went to law school at UCLA. This is ridiculous. So we need to absolutely invest in child care and child development, and then we need to make preschool universally available and full day for all children. I called for this when I was superintendent of public instruction. I had a universal preschool task force in 97. The report came out in 98. I called for it to happen within 10 years. Ladies and gentlemen, it's 20 years later. So now I think we ought to do it in 5 years. Once I'm governor, that's what we're going to try to do. And, you know, people say, well, you can't, well, that costs too much. Yeah, you can do that if you change Prop 13 for commercial and industrial. So, the steepest curve of development is 0 to 5. Amazing book called The Scientist in the Crib says the human brain is really a network wired together by language and love instead of fiber optics. We've got to give these children language and love and safe and wonderful developmental opportunities, and it will pay huge dividends in the future, I promise. Thank you for the question.
You know, as is so often the case, Billing's right. I mean, think about it. You know, that virtually every Western industrialized nation in the world has child care, has early childhood education, has universal preschool, has You got a right to be able to go to work, go to school, and have someone help you with your child so you can contribute, so you're not on welfare. I want to work with you to do that. We're not going to do that overnight, but we're going to start with, expanding the amount that we're investing and starting with the people that need it the most. And then we need to keep on going. Because as I said, and as you said, virtually every country in the world, Western industrialized, wealthy countries, have child care like that, and we ought to do it.
Next, we have Brandon to come up to the microphone. He is with the California Democratic Party. He's one of the delegates. And his question is on single care.
First off, thank you so much for coming out tonight. Welcome to Assembly District 19, where I was elected an Assembly District delegate right over here at City College. I'm also a student at City College as well, so double welcome to my neighborhood. I wanted to ask a little bit around, we know that last year the State Senate had passed SB 562, the single-payer health care bill, that was heading to the Assembly. Speaker Anthony Rendon had froze this bill in Assembly and held it, saying that there was no funding mechanism. However, the California Nurses Association had released a comprehensive study done by the University of Massachusetts which clarified several funding mechanisms for this bill. Knowing that, if you were elected governor, how would you help ensure that single-payer health care and that this bill kept going forward despite Anthony Rendon holding the bill in?
I started out earlier today saying that healthcare is a right, not a privilege, that I support universal healthcare. I did not support SB 562. And I'll tell you why. There was nothing in it. I mean, have you read the bill? The bill, there was nothing in it. To have a plan of that magnitude, it said we need $400 billion. 200 above what we need today, what we currently spending today. They said you'll put it on the ballot, and that the people will pass by a 2/3 vote a $200 million tax. But what they didn't say, because of Prop 98, you have to pass a $400 billion tax, and the reason is because half of it goes to education under Prop 98. So I say we got to put the beef in. I actually supported Sheila Pugh's bill, single-payer bill, 8 years ago. You know why? That had beef in it. It had, a path toward how to fund it. So I didn't support the bill. I do support the notion that that's where we got to end up. Because as you've said so many times, just like childcare, virtually every country, every rich Western industrialized country in the world has has single payer. But I tell people, all single payer is government paid for health care.
shave off just a few dollars. But you know, there's a couple of other options, as I mentioned. You could change Prop 13 and put some more money on the table that way. You could also, guess what? 33 oil producing states. We're the third biggest, the only one without an oil severance tax. So there's some things, the elephants in the room are some things that even Democrats are not talking about because, in fact, they get money from some of these people. And by the way, in addition to Big Pharma, I don't take money from Big Oil.
We have one last question from the public. It comes from Mabel Stein and the California Environmental Justice Alliance. Of course, this question is about climate justice. Mabel.
So the California Environmental Justice Alliance represents an alliance of environmental justice organizations of low-income Asian, Black, and Latino communities across California. I'm here tonight because of the recent devastating droughts, floods, fires, and mudslides in California. They are a clear indication that climate crisis in our state. There are some folks in the audience who traveled here from Sonoma, one of the most recently impacted communities. So my question is, in light of these impacts, do you believe that California should transition off fossil fuels? If so, how would you ensure that we protect both communities that have already been suffering from the health impacts of fossil fuel production and extraction in California, as well as the workers in those industries?
I absolutely support the transition from fossil fuels. The reality is that California has, in fact, made some strides. And I do give Governor Brown some real credit for his cap and trade. But cap and trade often does things in other states that we're not doing here. So we need to do more things here. First, even more wind power. We've upped our wind power, we can do even more. Second, even more solar power. I am a candidate who has solar panels on my home, and I also have a tankless water heater. So I believe very strongly in also going after more geothermal power. Ladies and gentlemen, did you know Iceland gets over half of its energy from geothermal? We have some untapped geothermal opportunities in the state of California. And I certainly don't believe that places like Alisal Ranch should be open next door to where people live and polluting their communities. That's ridiculous. But it's profitable for, this big gas company down there. So I say all of us need to look at one another and say, it's really time to begin making plans and making preparations to make sure that the next generation and the one after that has, in fact, a brilliant future. California needs to have a plan to transition off of fossil fuel. I absolutely support that as a direction for us to head in. And I think we've done some things that are right, we can do more.
Thank you.
Just to clarify, I too am not taking company money and don't support frankly California. Let's go back up to the record. Folks, at the end of the day, the best way to know what you're going to do is to see what you've done. Democrats were buying into the jobs blackmail issue on the environment in the 90s when I got to the legislature. They were trying to close down the AQMD, the Air Quality Management District. I took those Democrats on, and I said, we're not buying into this job housing blackmail. I'm the author of the Carl Moyer Act, which is, if you go and check, it's the biggest effort to clean up the air since the Clean Air Act before AB 32 and SB 32. I signed out of Kyoto as mayor, even though the United States hadn't signed out of Kyoto. Kyoto said to reduce carbon emissions by 7% of 1990 levels by 2012. We did 28%. Number 1 American city, number 5 in the world. Made LA a clean tech capital of the United States. I signed agreements to get completely off of coal. LA will be completely off of coal by 2025. Yes, and you talk about environmental justice. That's carbon emissions. That's one issue. And yes, we've got to get to 100% one day. But you know what? Environmental justice isn't just about carbon emissions, as you well know. It's about pollutants. And frankly, this state hasn't focused enough on environmental justice. So at the port, the port that moves 44% of all the goods that enter pollutants, truck emissions by 90%, SOx by 76%, NOx by 52%, diesel particulates by 72%. We were committed to that issue